My life is forever altered and changed. I will never look at Harry Potter movies or the books the same way again. Hey guys, what's up? It's Ashley. Welcome back to my channel, and I am here with my April reading wrap-up. Just as the same as March, I read 22 books this month, so we're just going to jump right in. Okay, so I started this month off with an absolute bang, and I read Manigold by senlinyu. This is the very popular Hermione fanfic that has been floating around for several years now, and I will be the first to admit that up until I read this, I have never touched Hermione fanfic, okay? I love Harry Potter. I've grown up with the books. I am a millennial that walks around saying I'm a Ravenclaw, but I just never, fed into the Hermione thing. And so about a month or two ago, I noticed on Bookstagram specifically that this book is really starting to pop off. Everybody's reading it and sharing it, and a few of my friends were sharing in their Instagram stories, and I was so intrigued. So I downloaded it. I will put the link down below. It is a website. It's fanfic. It's free. You can download it there, and you can send it directly to your Kindle. It's a great way to read it there. But this is going to be an alternate reality where Voldemort and the Death Eaters won the Battle of Hogwarts. Harry Potter is dead in this world. All that bad stuff. There is some Handmaid's Tale themes in here. As Hermione at the beginning of the story, she is imprisoned, and she's going to be sent to Malfoy Manor, where Draco and his wife need a surrogate to have a child for them. This book is over 1,000 pages. It is divided into 3 parts, but it was absolutely incredible. I dedicated 3 straight days to reading nothing but this book. My life is forever altered and changed. I will never look at Harry Potter movies or the books the same way again. There's no going back after this. I feel forever altered, but I'm okay with that. I do really want to get a physical copy of this book, but because it's a fanfic, it's just not really possible unless you bind it yourself. So I am currently in the process of obtaining the tools to do that, looking at some tutorial videos on how it's done. It's going to be a process. It's probably going to be one of my summer projects that I try to attempt once school is over, but we shall see. Then we have Coach by devney. This was her newest release for April. I absolutely loved this book. This is going to be small town sports romance. Our main character, he is the head coach of the football team for his former college, and our female main character is the assistant athletic director. And there is a no fraternization policy at work, so they are not allowed to date each other. So you're going to have a little bit of a forbidden romance aspect there. Ford was a single father, so you get all of that fun stuff. I really enjoyed this story because it's kind of a second chance romance. They weren't officially together, but they were very, very close to getting together. And then something happened in Ford's life, and he was forced to basically not pursue a relationship with Millie. Then you fast forward some years. Ford is an ex-NFL star of the Seahawks, and he has recently acquired the head coaching job of his former college. So he gets there. Millie is the assistant athletic director, and he is just very right away like, Millie's mine. I'm getting her back. I am going to right all of the wrongs that happened in the past. This is going to happen. Millie was your female main character that has worked so hard to get to where she's at. She's worked really hard to get to the position she's at. She has had to overcome a very male-dominated workforce. And so when she starts hooking up with Ford, she is so scared that her job is going to go south because she knows in her heart and in her mind that if they get caught, they're not going to boot the head football coach that they've been trying to get forever. They're going to boot the female assistant athletic director. So she's just got a lot of conflict with that. Like, I can't lose my job. I've worked for this my entire life. But I really enjoyed this story. It was so good. I'm definitely looking forward to when the next one comes out. Then I read The Sacrifice by Shantel Tessier. This was the new release in her Lords series. It doesn't really have a name, I think. But this is the 3rd one. I read The Sinner back in December. I didn't really like that one because I felt like the spice scenes just it was too much and it overpowered the plot, and it got to the point where I was just skimming a lot because it was too much. And I feel like she might have taken that feedback from book 2, and book 3 was just a lot more plot heavy, which I appreciate. Tyson, he was a big character in the first book. He was a side character. He helped out Riot, our main character, with a lot of inside things, and then he was a little bit of a side character in the second book. So what makes him different from the other two is he's not currently in college as a lord. He is a graduate, and he kind of is like the main boss guy of this nightclub that the lords all know about. They basically told Tyson, okay, you're going to be in charge of this once college is over. And then there were some stipulations that he didn't have to marry a lady the same way like other lords do. But that's basically your setup, and the story is so interesting and out there. It's got a lot of twists. Our female main character is Lakin, and she is supposed to marry a different lord at the very beginning of the story. And she's literally in her hotel room getting dressed for the wedding, and then Tyson shows up and says, change of plans, you're going to marry me instead. And what makes this story really interesting is it is definitely an enemies to lovers, because these two know each other. Tyson's chosen that he was gifted in college was Lakin's sister, who happened to be murdered while they were still in college. So Lakin blames Tyson for this. Tyson is trying to figure out some things behind the scenes. You don't really know what it is. Like I said, there's a lot to these books, but the twists and the turns, they're all very, very crazy. You can read them alone as standalones, but I think you're going to get the better overall experience if you go back and start with book 1, which is The Ritual. One of my favorite books last year, but I loved The Sacrifice. It holds right up there with The Ritual. And, of course, Redeeming 6. So I started this in March. Honestly, I should have ended it in March, and then I got to 80%, and I was like, oh, this can't end. I cannot end this book. So I held off on it for a while, and I feel like reading Manigold kind of in between that time really helped. It gave me a little bit of a cleanser. I felt refreshed. So when I was ready to finish the last part of this book, I was ready to just sit down and absorb it all. And it gave me everything I want. It gave me all the emotions I wanted. It gave me all the joy that I wanted. I don't want to talk too much about this because, like I said, I feel like I have talked about this in every single video I've had in the last several months. And if you watch all those videos and you still subscribe to me, thank you for being patient with me and holding out with me for this obsession that I have that is clearly unhealthy. But anyway, this is going to be your continuation of Saving 6. It picks up right after it left off. This book is going to be the one where you're going to have the events of Binding 13 and Keeping 13 in it, but you're getting Joey's perspective instead of Shannon's. And I have to say, I feel like Joey's perspective was a lot harder to read than Shannon's, just because Joey is this type of character that just carries the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he feels every single burden that his siblings feel. And it was just heartbreaking, and I loved it. But I have to say, I am so excited for where this series is going. Chloe Walsh just announced last week that a big publishing company did just purchase the rights for Boys of Tommen, and she did announce that she is currently writing book 5. So I am super excited. This book does end with Joey at Tommen. That's not a spoiler if you've read Binding and Keeping 13, because you will know Joey does eventually end up at Tommen. I mean, obviously this series is called Boys of Tommen, but I don't want to spoil anything else, but there is something else that happens in this book at the end. And it just made me even more excited because, like I said, I didn't see this coming, but it's really going to set this friend group up to have amazing times. Big found family. I am just so excited. So you know that the more updates we get for book 5, I will probably be spamming you guys like crazy. Then I read House of Beating Wings by Olivia Wildenstein. This is the first book in a fantasy trilogy. I really enjoyed this. This was so good. I did start book 2. I'm just not done with it yet. I will say, before you go in, you need to know that this series is very set up in kind of ACOTAR sense. You're not going to get your romantic interest until towards the end of the first book. Book 1 is a lot of setting up the plot and the story, but I didn't find it boring. So our female main character, she is like this animal whisperer person. when she was a young kid, there was like an incident in the village or something with this serpent, and she was like talking to the serpent, like trying to calm it down, and it really freaked out the other villagers. And so she's kind of been known as like this girl that can talk to snakes, and that's like not okay or anything like that. Her whole life, she has been in love with the prince, Dante. He is the king's brother, and she's just really always had feelings for him. So I will say you are going to get a little bit of romance in this book with him, but he is not your romance, okay? Our leading male character is described as being a villain. The way he comes into the book is very, very interesting. But I will say, to get you kind of intrigued, the plot basically, you're going to fast forward into the future, and our main character finds out through like this seer future person that she needs to free these crows, and if she does it, there's this prophecy that she will become queen. And to her, in her mind, she's thinking, oh, I'll free all these guys and I'll become queen by marrying Dante, who I've already wanted to marry. Well, as she's going on this journey freeing the crows, there's this other thing that's happening while there's another crow kind of following her along. And it's just a lot more. This might be the worst explanation to a fantasy story ever, but I promise you it was so good. I'm about halfway through book 2, and the guy is just so alpha possessive. This is fated mates, I will say, but I love it. Then I finished up the Lark Cove series by Devney Perry with Timeless. This is the 5th and final book. It is a little bit more like a novella because it's less than 200 pages, but I did listen to the audio, so it only took me a couple of hours. I will say, I think the reason that I didn't really like it was because it didn't take place in Montana. All 4 of the other books do in this town called Lark Cove, and so when you're taken out of Lark Cove and put in New York City for the whole story, it just kind of takes me out of the world a little bit. But needless to say, I still enjoyed it. For the final book, I kind of like how it was set up. Basically, your prologue is in the eyes of Charlie, who is the daughter of our 2 main characters from the first book, and she's talking to her Aunt Aubrey about love and heartache and everything. And so Aubrey kind of tells the story of how she ended up with her husband some years ago, and that's how the story kicks off. But Aubrey is the sister of Logan, our main character from the first book. She is the CEO of the family company in New York, and then her husband that she is retelling the story of, he is a cop in New York, and they were set up in the 4th book with Sophia, because Sophia kind of had a little interest with him when she was living there, but it just never turned into anything. But I will say, I do like how this series wrapped up. I'm slowly making my way through Devney Perry's backlog, so I think next I'm going to start the Copper Farmhouse series. I can't remember what it's called, but that is probably what I will do next. But I did enjoy it. It was like a good solid 3 stars. Nice way to end a series. Then I read Don't You Dare by C.E. Ricci. This is an MM baseball college romance. I really enjoyed it. I really liked the romance and the sexual tension between the 2 characters. You could really feel it. This is definitely a story where both of our 2 main characters are exploring their sexuality. It is one so more than the other. These 2 have been best friends their entire lives, and in the prologue at a high school party, they are dared to kiss each other. They're not the type of guys that are like, oh, gross, I'm not going to do that. They're just like, yeah, whatever, we're drinking, we're hanging out, let's do it. And when they kiss, it kind of awakens something in Keen, one of our main characters. And then you flash forward 3 years later, they are in college, and Keen has kind of secretly been on men's dating apps. He's kind of exploring this bisexual side to him, and it eventually comes out to Aspen, his best friend, that he thinks he might be interested in men as well as women. And Aspen kind of is like, well, instead of exploring those feelings with random guys on an app, why don't you explore those feelings with me? And it was just very interesting. Like I said, I loved the sexual tension. The spice was really, really good. I just think I liked this whole aspect of them exploring their sexuality. It just made for a really, really great read. There was also some conflict and tension because Keen is on a dating app, and he finds out that one of the guys he's been texting happens to be one of his teammates. So there's a little bit of drama there, but overall, for an sports romance, this was pretty solid. Then I read The Wrong Pitch by Brittany Taylor. This is a roommate's brother's friend type of relationship. This is a college one. So our female main character, she is not in college. I think she's a year older than our male main character, and she's recently lost her job and her apartment in New York. And so her brother says, hey, I've got a house with some roommates at school, just come stay, figure your things out. She wants to be a fashion designer, so she designs a lot of clothes. That's kind of her thing. And then our male main character, he is on the baseball team. And so obviously you're going to have this close proximity relationship. I will say the book started off really interesting because he was very like, you need to go away, you're going to distract your brother, I don't like that. When in reality, he was saying those things because he knew she was going to distract him. I just don't like where it went in the middle. I don't know. I feel like the setup was really great. The beginning was really great. And then, I don't know, it just became another typical college roommate romance. And I don't know. I feel like I've read a lot of those and I just want something new and different. But if you want a baseball romance, I really enjoyed it. It was pretty solid. Just a heads up, like the next 6 books in a row are all baseball. So yeah. But anyway, the next one was an arc by Grace Reilly. It is Stealing Home. This is the 3rd book in the Beyond the Playbook series. It covers a group of brothers that share a house in college. They just all happen to play a different sport. And for the 3rd book, Sebastian plays baseball. He is the adopted brother in this family. His father was a professional baseball player and he was best friends with his adopted father. So when his parents were killed, it was just very easy for his adopted family to say, hey, come live with us, we'll take care of you. And they really do include him as part of the family. Like, he calls them his parents, he calls them his siblings, he wears their last name on his jersey. It's just a really great family setup. And then our female main character is Mia, and she was teased a little bit in book 2 as they have this friends with benefits type of relationship. Sebastian wants more, but Mia doesn't. Mia is in school for science or something like that. She comes from a very strong, opinionated Italian family. They think she's in school to be a teacher, so she is lying about those aspects of her life. She is currently working to study abroad for the next year, and so school and all of that is very important to her. Sebastian, I think he was a senior, so he's almost done with baseball, and his conflicts were that he really likes baseball, but at the same time, his mom was like a chef or something, and he thinks that he might want to be a chef instead of play baseball. And so he's just got a lot of those conflicts going on, but I really enjoyed the story. It was a very cute college romance. Then I read More Than This by Jay McLean. This was another baseball romance. I did not include this one in that baseball rec video because it just didn't really have baseball elements to it. Yes, our main male character was a baseball player, but other than that, it just really wasn't mentioned. So I will say this does have heavy themes. This is a high school relationship, but they're at their end of the senior year. It's like the summer going into college. And at the very beginning of the book, our female main character, she discovers her boyfriend and best friend cheating on her in the bathroom at prom. And so our male main character, he sees this and he's like, well, why don't you just come join me and my friends for the rest of the night? And she takes him up on it, and they develop a really great friendship. Like that first night, she gets integrated into his friend group. They're like, what can we go do to your boyfriend to like mess with him? They like go mess with his car, all of that stuff. They are having like the best night of their life. And then she finds out that her parents and her little sister were murdered in a home robbery attempt, and that is literally her prom night. Her boyfriend cheated on her, and then she comes home and her family is dead. And where the story gets really interesting is that our male main character, he takes her in. He takes her home to his family, and they let her stay there for the whole summer. They basically tell her, you can come home here when you're in college, like for the holidays, everything. This is your home now. So I really liked it. I just think the pacing was a little off. I think I would have liked it more if they had actually gone to college and just stayed in this rut in the summer. But I liked the setup and where it was going. It was a solid 4 for me. Oh, but our main male character, he is set to play baseball at the University of North Carolina. I believe she's going to attend the University of North Carolina. So it was just very easy for these two to bond. And I think that's why it was so easy for him to be like, just come home with me and I will take care of you. Then I read The Third Baseman by Lulu Moore. This is a second chance pro baseball romance. I absolutely love this one. I think out of all the baseball books that I read last week, this was my absolute favorite. So our prologue basically shows how our male main character, Jupiter, breaks up with Marnie, our female main character. He dumps her the day that he is drafted into the MLB and absolutely breaks her heart, shatters it. He tells her that now that he's drafted, they just want different things and she's not it for him. Then you're going to fast forward some time and Marnie has now been brought to his baseball team. She worked for NASA. She's very smart, very sciencey, and she was brought in to do like analyzing, like how to analyze how the players play to like enhance their performance, something like that. Well, Jupiter was the one who brought Marnie. He made it very clear in his contract he was not going to come to this team unless they found her and pulled her in. And he makes that very clear with her at the beginning of the book. Like, hey, just so you know, you are here because I brought you here and I'm going to win you back. And I really liked it. I know a lot of people's gripes were the flashbacks, but me personally, I liked them because I think it really just set up their story better and you could really feel the tension. And once you find out that Jupiter wasn't really an asshat, that he had some good reason for doing what he did, it was great. But the tension between the two main characters, I absolutely loved it. This is definitely a book that I'm probably going to purchase the physical copy of. Then I read All Your Faults by Kristin Lee. This is going to be another college baseball romance. What's different in this one is that our female main character, she's an elite gymnast that plays for the school as well. And our main character, Hagen, this is very much like he falls head over heels in love with her when he meets her. And she was dumped at the beginning of the book by a baseball player. So she's got a lot of negative feelings and everything towards athletes in general. And so she puts up this wall over her heart that kind of comes across as bitchiness. So when he meets her, he's just so like into her, like so in love with her. And he's very taken back at the fact that she is so sunshine and friendly with everyone around her but him specifically, because she doesn't want to get hurt. And so he kind of like, he puts it in the back of his mind like, oh, she doesn't want a good girl, she wants a jerk. And so he points that out to her several times, like, well, I'm sorry, maybe you go off with that jerk, maybe that'll give you what you want. And she's like, excuse me. So there's a lot of back and forth banter in here. The title of the book is really funny because she tears her ACL at the beginning of the story and she blames him for it, but the reason she blames him for it is kind of funny in itself. But I really enjoyed it. Once again, for a college baseball romance, this was pretty solid. Then I read Hey Batter Batter by Suzanna Manship. This is another baseball one, but this time he is pro and she owns a bakery. So at the very beginning of the story, he gets into a bar fight and he needs to go hide out because he will get in trouble with the press, his manager, all of that. So he ends up hiding out in a bakery in the city at 3 o'clock in the morning, and he meets her and it's just kind of like love at first sight. He's head over heels with her. So a few nights later, he decides to go back to the bakery and talk to her. And she ends up getting a little overwhelmed at work, and so he stays for the day and helps her. And that very same day, she ends up breaking her foot. And so because of the fact, her living situation, she lives above the bakery, but requires a ladder to get in and out of her home. And so our male hero is like, well, this is not acceptable. Your foot is broken. You're on crutches. So guess what? I have an apartment right across the street. Come stay with me. Now the best part is he has like a studio loft with one bed. So you are definitely going to have big time close proximity, one bed trope. But I really enjoyed this story. It was pretty good. Then I listened to the audiobook of Pretty Girls by Karin Slaughter. Whew, it has been a while since I've read a thriller. It's been quite a hot minute. And so Lachlan from Locke's Library, she has recommended this one to me a few times, like to get out of a reading slump. And I was just really feeling a thriller. So I will say, definitely check your trigger warnings. This book has a lot of twists and turns that I did not see coming. But basically your setup is this girl, Julia, she went missing in the early 90s. She was never found. And then you fast forward to the present and there are these two girls, Claire and Lydia, and they noticed that some new girls going missing. Kind of it matches up with how Julia went missing. And I really only want to say that because I feel like everything else is just going to be like a huge spoiler. Like I said, the twists in this turns in this book just like came out of nowhere. Gave me chills. I will say I hate men. This book just really is one of those books where men are horrible. Men are awful. Like, you find out at the beginning, like, men are just men are not good, okay? But if you like thrillers and any of these themes kind of sound interesting to you, I highly suggest this one. It was really good. Then I read Travis by Mia Sheridan. This is the spin-off to Archer's Voice. So if you've read that, then you will know that Travis is Archer's half-brother. Now, I was skeptical about picking this book up because it's been out for a while, but it did recently get released with new cover and everything like that. But Travis was not a good guy in Archer's Voice. He really actually was the antagonist. He did a lot of really not great things until the end of the book comes out and all of these other stories and things get revealed. But I didn't want to read Travis's redemption story because I'm like, does this guy even deserve a redemption? But I'm glad I picked this up. Obviously, this is not going to be like Archer's Voice levels of amazingness. Like, that book is still one of my favorite 5-star reads to this day. I actually do want to reread it now that I've read this, but I really liked this one. It's a small town romance. I will say Travis does redeem himself. He really does. He hates himself for the things that he did in the events of Archer's Voice. He hates himself for the things that he's done pretty much his entire life and Archer's entire life. He's very resentful towards his mother for being a pawn who really kind of got that whole thing going. But I really liked it. So Travis is the sheriff in this coastal town in Maine, I think, and he meets Haven, and Haven is about 10 years younger than him, so you've got a little bit of an age gap here. And she and her brother, they are the type of people that they basically move a lot. They live on the road. They'll come to a town, they'll work for a few months, and then they'll take off again. And so she and her brother are there to work for the summer, and Haven is a very green thumb vegan type of girl, totally opposite of Travis. When he meets her, he actually pulls her over on the side of the road because she has too many plants obstructing her view in the car. So they have this little banter because he's like, you need to leave these on the side of the road, and she's like, what? These are my children. I can't do anything like that. And it's really fun banter. They develop a really great friendship because Travis discovers she really has the hots for another guy in town, and so he's like, okay, I'll help you get him. But obviously while he's helping her out, he develops feelings for her. There is quite a few scenes with Archer and Bree in here as well, but I really enjoyed this. This was a nice solid 4-star, but I definitely want to get back into Archer. Then I read Southpaw by Ginger Scott. I promise this is the last baseball book of this video. So this is going to be a minor league team, and this is Coach's daughter. So our male main character, he is new to the team, but his housing situation, the host family he was supposed to stay with, fell through. So the coach hooked him up to stay with his son that has his own apartment. And so our female main character, up until this, she had lived with her brother, so she still has a key. And at the very beginning of the story, they meet because she sprays him with pepper spray because she's like, why are you trying to get into my brother's apartment? So they have this very, very much enemies to lovers relationship. He's very annoyed with her because she constantly goes to her brother's apartment, and he's like, why are you here? You do not live here. And her whole argument is like, I have a key, and he is just like, give it back. You do not live here. You should not be here. She is, I think, in her, like, she's about to get her master's, and she wants to be like a mental coach or something like that. What happened prior to the story setting up was that the former pitcher that this team had, that was her boyfriend, and she helped him with his pitching, with mental coaching, and he got called up for it, and he didn't thank her for it, and he dumped her for another woman. So she has a lot of resentment, but she still needs a thesis to graduate. And so when our male main character gets there and she's kind of observing his pitching style, she's like, you know what? I can help him too. And so obviously he doesn't want the help at all. He thinks it's a whole bunch of crap, basically. He doesn't buy into it. And she's like, no, I can help you. Please, please let me help you. And so it's a lot of banter between the two, but it's also, you know, she wants to help him achieve his goals, and then he's also trying to help her achieve her goals. And I just really liked it. It was a great enemies to lovers romance. Okay, and then I finally read Daisy Hates. I read Magnolia back in November, and it was one of my favorite books of the year, and I really don't know why it took me so long to get to Daisy, because I have to say, I think I like Daisy more than Magnolia. Don't get me wrong, I still love Magnolia. I love her for her faults and everything like that, but I just like Daisy more. I personally get annoyed with Magnolia always needing guys to have feelings for her. It's just something that really irks me with other females in my life. And so Daisy is just a lot more of a stronger female character to me. I really liked her. This is friends to lovers, friends with benefits to lovers. Our two main characters are Daisy and Kristin. Kristin is part of Magnolia's friend group. He is one of Magnolia's best friends. He and Magnolia have a little bit of a past that Daisy is very jealous of, because she knows people are never going to get over Magnolia. And so Magnolia just really irks her in general because of all of the attention that she gets from men. And so in this book, she is really falling head over heels for Kristin, but she knows Kristin's never going to feel the same about her, because he's always going to be in love with Magnolia, when in reality, you get Kristin's point of view, and he's kind of in love with both women. It's a whole mess. You also have a third point of view of Julian, who is Daisy's brother. He is this crime lord who sells art. I loved that aspect of it. There is a cop, like an FBI American agent in here, who is kind of flirting with Daisy also, because he's trying to catch Julian. There is another main character, Romeo. He is Daisy's former love. Honestly, I have to say, even though this book was about Daisy and Kristin, I loved her relationships with all three of the guys. Obviously, Kristin is my pick, but I just think she had great chemistry with all of them, that it definitely, like, I wasn't frustrated in the book when she was hanging out with the other guys. It was very enjoyable. I will say you could read this separately if you don't want to read Magnolia, because I know some people don't want to because of the themes that Magnolia has. You could, but I just think you're going to get the overall better experience if you read this as a series as it is intended to. This book does take place at the same time as Magnolia Parks does, so there's a lot of crossovers with things that happen in that book, and you're getting different perspective in this one. But this was a perfect 5-star for me. I think I'm more excited to read Daisy Hates the Great Undoing than I am to read Magnolia Parks The Long Way Home, but I'm just going to have to read it so I can get to the next. Then I read Painted Scars by Neva, altaj, I think. This is the first book in a Mafia series, and this first one is going to be like a marriage of convenience. However, there is an expiration date on it, because our male main character, he really only needs a wife for a few months to get like the rest of the mafia off his back. And so he tells her that. She knows. They have to create this whole kind of fake relationship so that the people in his house believe that they are together, but obviously they fall for each other. I believe she was an artist, and so there were some fun scenes where she had like these galleries, and he was like mysteriously purchasing all of the art. But for a mafia one, it was pretty good and solid. And then I read the second book, which is called Broken Whispers. I definitely liked this a lot more. If you go on TikTok, this is like one of everybody's favorite male main characters from this series. It is Mikhail and Bianca, I think, and Bianca is a ballerina, and Mikhail is a very scarred guy. He has an eye patch. He was very tragically scarred and tortured when he was younger, and so he just has to carry the scars with him for the rest of his life. And he's been kind of following Bianca's dance career and watching her as a ballerina, and he always leaves her these little mysterious flowers that she cherishes. And then he finds out that Bianca's family needs to marry her off into somebody within their mafia family, and so he volunteers for it. He has a daughter, so you have a single father aspect. Now, what really sells this story for me is the fact that our female main character is mute. She had an accident when she was a teenager, and it damaged her voice box forever. So she is not able to speak in this book, and it just added more elements that I really, really loved. But for mafia books, these both were really good. All right, and then if you have been following me for a while, you will know that I have slowly been making my way through Chloe Walsh's backlog this year. So I read the Broken series in December. That's her first series ever. It is one of my favorite series to this day. I love it. There is something special about it. And then Carter Kids, her next series, is the spinoff to that, which covers the next generation. So I read books 5 and 6, which was Inevitable and Altered. And this covers Hope and her love triangle with her husband, Jordan, and Lucky, who is Noah's best friend. Noah is the main male character in the first 4 books. Now, you can read Carter Kids alone, but I think because of the way that Chloe writes her characters, if you've read Boys of Tommen, you will know Chloe writes these characters like in such a profound way that you get very attached to them and all of their little moments. And I think if you start with the Broken series and get the whole backstory, you're just going to appreciate it more. I will also say that these books have a lot of drama because the bad guy from the Broken series comes back in Carter Kids to take revenge on the kids because he couldn't exactly get the parents. So I just really think you're going to get a better payoff and everything if you start with the Broken series. But all of them are really, really good. I don't really like love triangles, but this one with Hope and Jordan and Lucky, it was just so, like, you could just feel the angst and the tension and the drama. I did have a favorite. I won't reveal who it is, but I'm obsessed with Chloe's writing. I really am. So I am about to start her next series, which is the Pocketful series. So we will see if I like that one just as well. But yeah, I absolutely love this. I will say out of the Carter Kids books, 5 and 6 were definitely my favorites. 1 through 4 was great, but I just think the couple for 5 and 6 was just outstanding, top tier, no beating it. Wrapping up the month of April, I read Grease Monkey by Vari Scott. This was a new release for April. I really enjoyed this. This is a second chance romance. And most of the second chance romances I read, they have the flashback formula where you're jumping back and forth. This one was not. It was 50% of the book is the past, and then the second half you jump to the future. And I really liked it because you really, instead of flashbacks, you got the full picture of how these two fell in love. So she is, I think, the governor or the senator's daughter. He lives next door and he is a mechanic. And his father is a mechanic, I think. His parents work blue-collar jobs, but his parents are so in love and they've just always instilled this on our main character. I think his name was Teddy, to just work hard and find the love of your life. And his parents have always kind of joked with him, hey, you should ask out Morgana, the girl next door. She's so cute and pretty. And he's like, I'm 20, she's 18. I'm not going to do that. And so they have a little bit of flirting banter. He kind of follows her home from school a few times with his car, flirts with her, asks her out just as a joke. And then one day he actually does ask her out because she happens to witness him receiving a blowjob from another girl. And so it just opens up a conversation with the two. I will say what really sells this story is the fact that they can't be together because of her parents. Her dad was not in this book at all. He was just mentioned, but her mom was like the spawn of Satan, I swear. From the very beginning of the story, she is very, we will bleach your teeth. I don't like your curly hair. We're going to have it chemically straightened. She doesn't like the people next door because they're mechanics and they work beneath her. And so they have to hide their relationship. And then when their relationship is discovered, the things that her mom does to make sure that they cannot be together is just so evil and cruel. But like I said, the tension between these two characters was so sky high. I absolutely love Teddy. You could really feel his heartbreak and his hurt when things go down the way that they do. But I loved this one. For a second chance romance, this honestly was probably one of my favorites. All right, well, thank you for sticking with me for this April reading wrap up. I am super excited for May. I am finally in summer mode, so I have a lot of summer themed books planned for next month. But as always, don't forget to hit like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!